Good afternoon. I am Andrea Chisholm with the Midday News for this Friday, August 3. A special welcome if you're watching on onespotmedia.com. The government says it is not in a position to roll back the gas tax at this time. The announcement was made by Finance Minister Dr. Nigel Clark. In a statement this morning, Mr. Clark said based on the economic situation, it is premature to discuss that kind of tax reduction. He says the government is working to reduce Jamaica's high debt burden and address long-standing deficiencies with increased capital expenditure on roads. Other priorities include irrigation, security, and increasing spending on school feeding and other types of social assistance. Mr. Clark adds there were no new taxes in the last budget. President of the Jamaica Gasoline Retailers Association, JGRA, believes the gas tax should be rolled back.
And that Jamaica need every fund that it can get to meet its demands. But on this one, I believe it should be rolled back.
And the general manager of Petrojam, Winston Watson, has reacted to the latest increase in the price of gasoline. Yesterday, the state-run oil refinery increased the cost of petrol by $2.60 per litre. Opposition spokesman on energy Philip Paulwell described the latest hike as unprecedented. However, Mr. Watson says the increase is not the largest this year.
Anytime you have issues politically or even weather-wise, we also see that effect. So it is just a normal path. This week it just happened to go up by more than the norm, but it's not the highest that we have ever seen, certainly this year. So it's just a blip, and hopefully we'll see how it settles back next week.
He said the increase is primarily due to a peak in international travel and external political issues which have negatively affected the global oil market. One of three men seen last Friday removing several heating pipes from the compound of the Alpart Gisco plant at Nain in St. Elizabeth yesterday pleaded not guilty to charges of simple larceny and receiving stolen property. Dwayne Brown of Stephen Run in St. Elizabeth, also called Joe, was offered bail in the sum of $350,000. As a condition of bail, he was placed on a nightly curfew and is to report to the Nain police 3 days per week. According to reports, on Friday, July 27, members of the Nain police responded to a call from security personnel at the Alpart Gisco plant that men were seen removing pipes from the compound. He is scheduled to return to court on November 20. The Education Ministry is moving to fully include entrepreneurship as part of the high school curriculum. When school reopens next month, every grade 9 student will have to do the course. Details in this report.
Last academic year, 40 high schools participated in a pilot entrepreneurship course, which was introduced to 9th grade students. The Education Ministry says a pilot was successful. Students had to develop a product, form a company, and learn how to operate that company.
The JC group had 16 companies across their grade 9, and one of those companies actually wins. So we don't actually won, so we have a competition among the schools, and they designed their business idea and plan, and the business that they developed are glasses for blind people, where you have a sensor and it speaks to you. So there's a microphone that's embedded in the glasses.
They designed that?
Yes.
From scratch?
Absolutely. And we had a school, Nain did very well. They came second and third, and they used old plastic to design duffel bags.
So how did the students get money to develop their product?
The company themselves have to find ways to raise money. Because again, this is real world thinking, and nobody just takes up money and gives you to run a company. So when you think about your idea, when you look at your community, you have to say, how can I raise money to actually start? So a lot of them do actual fundraising, and that again teaches them the skills.
State Minister in the Education Ministry, Floyd Green, says the aim is to equip students with the skills required to launch successful businesses.
I think we recognize more that for a long time our education system has really focused on a conveyor belt approach, training students to look for jobs. But the modern day reality is that we have to look at, one, the different skills that students need to survive in this world, and also that how will you create jobs unless you're training students to actually be the creators of jobs. So we want to create the next generation of entrepreneurs.
He adds that students will be able to sit the course in external exams.
And then clearly after grade 9, those who are bit by the entrepreneurship bug, they can now do it as a CSEC subject and can do it at CAPE. But more importantly, even if you're not bit by the bug, those principles stay with you.
So far, 120 schools are registered to administer the entrepreneurship course. Unattached youth will also have the opportunity to participate in the initiative. Mr. Green was speaking on Friday morning during TVJ's Smile Jamaica program. O'Shane Masters, TVJ News.
New measures have been implemented by the Passport, Immigration and Citizenship Agency PICA to clamp down on identity theft. Persons applying for a passport on behalf of another individual will now be required to take along a certified authorization letter. It must be signed by the individual. Formerly, an individual could submit an application for another person without presenting an ID or a letter of authorization from the applicant. In addition, PICA is reminding persons that pet names and other unofficial titles are not acceptable when applying for a passport. Only names that are recorded on a person's birth certificate, adoption certificate, certificate of citizenship, or deed poll will be accepted by PICA. The Health Ministry is reporting that investigation and monitoring carried out by it, as well as the St. Ann Health Department of Blue Hole attractions in St. Ann, have not found enough evidence to conclude that the locations are a source of leptospirosis. Details in this report.
TVJ News carried a story last month in which the families of affected individuals spoke about their visit to Blue Hole. They reported finding murky water, but that did not stop them from jumping in. The families claimed that on returning to the United States, some fell ill and were diagnosed with leptospirosis. In a statement yesterday, the Ministry of Health said there is limited information available on the publicized cases, and the Ministry of Health is awaiting communication from official sources in the U.S. regarding any citizen who may have contracted the disease in Jamaica. The ministry says it is concerned about any possible risk to the public and has therefore conducted investigations and follow-up visits to the locations. It says prior to receiving the complaints, the health department had been monitoring the water quality on a monthly basis from the mouth of the river upon its exit to the coast. The health ministry says samples were also collected recently from different points in the vicinity of the Blue Hole attractions, which tested negative for the bacteria that causes the disease. It has given the commitment that the St. Ann Health Department will continue to maintain a presence at the Blue Hole attractions and along the White River course. Additionally, routine checks will be carried out at the various locations to ensure the health and safety of the public. Leptospirosis is an infectious disease that is transmitted through the urine of infected animals that enter the water or soil and survive for months. O'Shane Masters, TVJ News.
Poor garbage collection is causing problems for several communities in St. Elizabeth. There has been a shortage of garbage trucks in the rural areas of the parish for almost a month. Residents of Siloa, Aberdeen, Horton, Newton, Magotty and adjoining districts have complained that no garbage was collected since the first week of July. As a result, some householders have now resorted to burning their waste, and this is causing some uneasiness among neighbors. The pileup of garbage has also led to an increase in rodents in commercial areas. The Southern Parks and Market, which has the responsibility of garbage collection in the parish, outlined that the agency is affected by a shortage of trucks. But the agency says every effort will be made to have the backlog of garbage cleared before the end of the week. The agency is, however, asking residents to ensure that their household waste is properly packaged and stored to prevent littering by stray animals. The time now for a fact or fiction feature, and we're asking, is this fact or fiction? there was a gas riot in Jamaica in 1991. And of course, you can find out the answer to at the end of the sports segment of the newscast. In news overseas, the Russian threat to elections in the U.S. is real. That's the intelligence community, and the intelligence community is fighting back. That was the message top administration officials delivered during a White House briefing. Though Russian meddling ahead of the 2018 midterms does not seem as robust as it was in the 2016, officials warn the danger is real. Details from the CNN.
Our democracy itself is in the crosshairs.
Several of President Trump's top intelligence officials addressed reporters on Thursday to lay out what the U.S. is currently doing to combat Russian election interference.
The intelligence community's focus right now is persistent support to the FBI, to the Department of Homeland Security, and other agencies in their election responsibilities.
Director of National Intelligence Dan Coates confirmed that Russia is engaged in a messaging campaign to undermine and weaken the United States. Coates says the president has directed the intelligence community to make countering election interference a top priority.
We also know the Russians try to hack into and steal information from candidates and government officials alike.
This announcement comes less than 3 weeks after President Trump and Russian President Vladimir Putin shared a stage in Helsinki, Finland. When given the opportunity to condemn Putin for election interference, the president questioned the U.S. intelligence. National Security Advisor John Bolton says the president is committed to their efforts.
I think the president has made it abundantly clear to everybody who has responsibility in this area that he cares deeply about it and that he expects them to do their jobs to their fullest ability and that he supports them fully.
Several U.S. senators have confirmed they have been targeted by Russians, including Senators Claire McCaskill and Jeanne Shaheen.
And in sports, legendary Jamaican sprinter Veronica Campbell-Brown says she is not ruling out competing for another 3 years, including at the 2020 Tokyo Olympics. Despite having to cut short her 2018 season due to injury, 36-year-old Campbell-Brown says she remains focused on returning to the track for 2019 and beyond.
And I was expecting to have a good season, and then I reached a bump in the road. 2017, the same thing. So you never know. So at this point, I'm just working with what my body is saying and then make a decision based on that. Because if I'm not able to be 100% healthy and train at a certain level, it is difficult to achieve what I want. Yeah. So inside out, activate the power within you.
Meanwhile, the 6-time Olympic World Championship gold medalist has remained busy away from the track with the production of her second book dubbed Inside Out. The book, among other things, contains several inspirational quotes.
Peace in this world. And of course, we all have to be mentally tough to achieve what we want because life is full of obstacles. And when you are knocked down, you have to have the mental strength to get back up. And then purpose. It is important for us to know what our purpose is and work towards it, because when you maximize your purpose, then you can live a more fulfilling life.
And Jamaica's women secured gold in the sprint relay on Thursday's final day of competition at the CAC Games in Colombia on Thursday evening. The team of Jura Levy, Sharon Simpson, Janelle Smith and Natasha Morrison clocked 43.41 seconds ahead of Trinidad and Tobago and the Dominican Republic. Meanwhile, the men's team of Nesta Carter, Romario Williams, Rashid Dwyer and Javoy Tucker took bronze after posting 38.79 behind the Dominican Republic 38.71 and winners Barbados 38.41. Jamaica garnered 27 medals overall, including 12 gold, 4 silver and 11 bronze. And finally this afternoon, the answer to our Fact or Fiction feature. And we were asking if the gas riot happened in 1991. And it is fiction. The widespread riot happened in April 1999 when then Prime Minister P.J. Patterson announced that a 31% gas tax would be imposed. From Marant Point to Negril Point, tires went up in flames and businesses were forced to close as Jamaicans joined in demonstration. Public transportation and the education system were virtually crippled, while the police force, the military, and the fire brigade worked overtime to contain the protest. The demonstrations led to more than 100 arrests in the corporate area, St. Elizabeth, St. Thomas, Clarendon, St. Catherine, and St. James. As the protests drew to an end, the Prime Minister, P.J. Patterson, set up a committee to examine the gas price hikes and recommended adjustments. And that's the Midday News. I'm Andrea Chisholm. Do remember to join us at 7 for the Primetime News Package. On behalf of the entire team, good afternoon.